There, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Boy, I got a doozy for y'all today. I watched the first episode of Marvel's Ironheart series, and, well, I can't say I'd recommend it. Though I find myself making entirely different points than most of the online haterade crowd, so let's get into it. Ironheart is a mini-series created by Snowpiercer writer Chinaka Hodge, hope I didn't butcher that too badly, for Disney Plus, based on the Marvel Comics character of the same name. This is the 14th television series produced for the MCU, shares continuity with both Black Panther and Wakanda Forever, which is important later. Now, the series was announced way back in 2020. Casting was done in 2022, and filming wrapped up in November of that year. Yet it sat on the shelf until late 2025, so that tells you a lot right there. The premise is as follows. Following the events of Black Panther Wakanda Forever, MIT student Riri Williams returns home to Chicago, where she becomes entangled with the enigmatic Parker Robbins, the Hood. I can't even say it with a straight face. Anyway, discovering secrets that pit technology against magic and setting her on a path of danger and adventure. It almost sounds like a YA novel, but anyway. In addition, the actress who plays Riri, Dominique Thorne, stated the series would be a deeper dive into Riri's character, explaining her background and upbringing as well as dealing with the events of the film. Well, therein lies the first break from the film and the series, at least as far as the first episode is concerned. This Riri's relationship with the events in Wakanda Forever just ends. It's hand wave dismissed as she had an internship with Wakanda and now it's over. And that makes no damn sense at all. As a quick aside, it is vital to establish your audience in the first episode. See, whenever I make some piece of entertainment, if I'm GMing or I'm writing or whatever, it is absolutely essential to me that I hook the audience right out the gates. I always imagine myself I'm sitting around a fire, people staring at me, listening to what I have to say. I have got to get those people hooked right then and there. Otherwise, why would they listen to me? The writer for this show did not feel the same way. Now, going back to the show, in the first Black Panther movie, the entire point of the film was that Wakanda was too isolated and T'Challa wanted to open the doors, reach out, and help others, which we then saw a continuation of as Wakanda recruits Riri and Wakanda Forever. So, why would that relationship just end? And why was that end not worthy of some explanation? Now, maybe the show explains it later on in the series, but the writer made the cardinal sin of creating a tremendously boring first episode, which means I'm not wasting any more of my precious time watching this to answer a question that should have been, and certainly could have been, answered quickly and succinctly in the first episode. For the level of assistance she provided in Wakanda Forever and the importance of the invention she created in the film, there's absolutely no reason that Wakanda would terminate that relationship with Riri. And further, the entire first episode of Ironheart has Riri bemoaning a lot, I might add, that she doesn't have the level of money and technology that she wants, which Wakanda could and absolutely would provide her were the show to present the logical situation that she's now probably living in Wakanda, but definitely doing work for them. If the writer absolutely must have Riri back home in Chicago, there are easy ways to do this. She's homesick and she's visiting. Or maybe she makes a virtual phone call home to touch base. Or maybe she makes a holodeck type room to relive some scenes from her past, like Tony Stark did in Civil War. I mean, if she idolizes the man as much as the show exposits, and she has access to Wakanda's files on him, which had to be extensive, there's no reason for her not to adopt and utilize the tech he created throughout the MCU. Maybe even improve on it? And there are tons of layers of storytelling to be explored here. As someone she wants to be like, she could be presented with the good and the bad of him, find out where she lies in all this, who she is as a character, but we don't get that. Instead, we get Riri going back to MIT. And you're telling me a degree from MIT is more prestigious than the accolades she could earn in Wakanda doing work there. Wakanda is probably the most sought after nation on Earth after the events of Wakanda Forever, Infinity War, Endgame, all that. And you're saying Riri would rather have a piece of paper from MIT instead of working hands on with vibranium tech, the cutting edge, the most sought after stuff out there. Okay, sure. But she goes back to the States to study at MIT, where we're presented with a bit of a different Riri. In Wakanda Forever, she was making cutting edge tech with scraps and it worked. Admittedly, in that film, she did not have the chemistry and impact I think the writers wanted, as she came off, at least to me, really bland and generic, but the character functioned. And now back in the States, she's turned into anti Midas. Everything she touches turns to crap. There's a montage in the beginning showing why she gets tossed out of MIT. So, spoilers. She cheats, selling answers to test other students. And she conducts experiments that fail so disastrously, she blows up an entire student lab. And not only is her integrity out the window, but she's also blitheringly incompetent now somehow. So it's like, okay, double whammy there. When confronted with her severe personality failings, Riri's reaction is that she can't reach her full potential because she's not as rich as Tony Stark. It's quite an assertion. The hallmark of genius is taking lead and making gold. In the first 10 or 20 minutes of her own series, she shows beyond a doubt that that ain't her. And further, she's completely ungrateful for the opportunities given her and incredibly rude to the administrator that got her in the door, which leads back to why did she need a sponsor coming off the endorsement of Wakanda, but I digress. So we're presented with a Riri that's profoundly unlikable, entitled, incompetent, and just there's nothing there to root for, really, at least for me. Tony Stark had his character flaws, but they were presented as fun. And he was presented as having the genius to pay for the failures, and that he was capable of growing. Riri is presented in direct contrast to all of this, which is another reason I let series go after a single episode. The main character sucks. And her antagonist, the Hood. I mean, if the main character isn't interesting, there's usually no reason to stick around and watch a show. But unless maybe they've got a really interesting antagonist. But the Hood is absolutely worth mentioning as he's not that antagonist. This guy, this guy is embarrassing. And I mean that in the most profound way. Casting Anthony Ramos was a bold choice. I didn't care for him in Twisters, my first exposure to him. So the actor himself did not present villain material, at least for me. And heroes are defined by their villains. And it's even more so these days that villains tend to be far more fascinating than the heroes they oppose, but that's a topic for another time. Suffice it to say, Ramos does not step up, at least in the first episode, and present himself as menacing or charismatic opponent to Riri. And in fact, when I first saw this guy in his theater garb, I blurted out, "Fuck! What the fuck? Is this a high school play? Did this guy just raid the theater department?" And then I started laughing hysterically and had to pause the show. Costuming department, no. This? No. Not like this. But he's got his little crew of miscreants that also held no interest for me, like all 15 of them, or however many there were. Seriously, way too many side characters in this. Someone in the writer's room needed to step up and make some hard points to head writer Chinaka Hodge, and that didn't happen. So we're presented with this, and it doesn't work. By the end of the episode, I'm disgusted with Riri. I'm squirming on the couch about the Hood. I've forgotten all the side characters, and I just don't care where the show's going or what's going to happen. And teasing Borat as Mephisto just sealed the deal. I'm out. Finally, I'd like to add how disappointed I was with this. I enjoyed Wakanda Forever. I watched it twice. I don't know how many times I've watched Black Panther. Uh, but yeah, Wakanda Forever. It wasn't great per se, but it was enjoyable enough. And I felt it was very much a heartfelt farewell to an actor taken too soon. How they're going to replace Chadwick Boseman, I don't know. The dude came out of left field as it was. I thoroughly enjoyed him as T'Challa. I don't know that Shuri's the answer, but she was enjoyable enough in the movie. Like, her heroic journey made sense, at least. Riri in that film had to be a sideline character. The core of the show was Shuri. And while I felt the Ironheart character could have been better written, I wouldn't call it bad either. It was fine. It was fine. This though, the Ironheart TV show, this is bad, and I say that meaning I want to be interested in a character, and the writer chose to make the character unpleasant, very unpleasant. I mean, how many of us would treasure the chance to work for Wakanda? I mean, come on. And the writer tossed that to the curb. It's unforgivable. What would Riri be if she did the logical thing and stayed working for Wakanda? And you can argue that she was breaking out on her own to earn her respect her own way, but that's a hollow argument, really. It's not the tools that make you, it's what you do with them. Tony Stark showed that in a cave with a box of scraps. This needed to be Riri, showing that she was cut from the same cloth in her own way. And the show did not do that. And that's why it's so disappointing. Ironheart could have been an interesting character, and the writer just decided that wasn't going to be the case, and for whatever reason, Disney went along with it. When we see studio interference all over the place, except where it needed to be, I mean, what a waste of resources and potential. It was so boring. It was really just boring. The whole first episode, I was like, I'm bored. There's nothing happening. I don't care. So, anyway, so y'all are welcome. I watched Ironheart, so you don't have to. Now, some of you out there might still enjoy it. I'm obviously not the authority on everyone's taste in entertainment, but for me, I found it criminally boring with a shockingly unlikable main character and an embarrassing antagonist with way too many forgettable side characters. This thing needed a completely different script and probably writer, but this is what we got. But that's all I got for you today. I hope you all find some use in my little review. Just a reminder, I put out videos all the dang time, so if you'd like to see more, feel free to subscribe. And click that bell icon will notify you when I put out something new, which is often. Anyway, I hope you all have a great day. Drink some water, watch some cartoons, read some comics, enjoy a good movie, do something fun, and as always, have a good one.